Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam she'akol niya bidvaro. I try not to be superstitious. I try to have an open mind. But yet, in Jewish tradition, there is a date, the 9th of the month of Av, that surely a date that brings evil events to the Jewish community. You know, the two temples of Jerusalem, the first one in the year, I think 576, something like that, before the Common Era, and the second one in the year 70, they were both destroyed on the 9th of the month of Av. That is the name of the month in Hebrew, Av, A-V. Well, it all started actually when our ancestors were in the desert, when they came to the frontier, to the border of the Promised Land. They sent explorers to take a look. What kind of land is it? Who lives there? What are the fruits of the land? What kind of cities do they have? And they came back with an evil report. There were 12 explorers. 2 of them said, place is great, we're going to be victorious. But 10 of them came back with an evil report. They said, you know, there are giants living there. The cities are fortified. We will never be able to overcome. That was on the 9th of Av. And unfortunately, because of that report, our ancestors spent 40 years in the desert, did not, in the second year, go into the Promised Land, but had to spend a total of 40 years in the desert. Our tradition says that the people, when they heard the report, they started crying. So God said, you're crying for this. I will give you in the future reason to cry. And the reason to cry was the destruction of the 2 temples. You know, in 1492, the Jews were expelled from Spain. Actually, Jews were expelled from different countries of Europe, from England, from France. I remember once that an ambassador, a Polish ambassador in Venezuela, called my attention to the fact that from Poland, the Jews were never expelled. But they were mistreated in many an occasion, especially during the Second World War, even though there were Poles that helped Jews. No question about it. John Paul II, a very famous pope that became a saint, was Polish, and he was surely a friend of the Jewish people. We cannot deny that. But in any event, the expulsion of the Jews from Spain was a momentous event. Imagine, everything that you owned suddenly had to fit into a carriage that you were allowed to take out. What about your home? What about a piece of land that you owned? What about the business that you established? You couldn't take anything with you. And if you wanted to sell it, other people, knowing that you had to leave it, obviously wouldn't give you anything comparable to the real value of it. I know of families that have a key, a medieval key, as part of an heirloom. That is the key to their home in Spain, that their ancestors were forced to leave. They keep the key. That is a symbol of what they were once, of what they owned at one time. In any event, you know, so many things have happened around the 9th of Av. You know, the explosion in the AMIA in Buenos Aires in 1992, that happened on the 9th of Av also. And a very famous episode that is now being commemorated, 40 years it happened, Entebbe. That happened around, it wasn't the 9th of Av, but it was in the same general vicinity of this date. What happened then? An Air France plane left Tel Aviv. It was on its route to Paris, stopped in Athens. 40-odd people or so came on the plane, among them 4 terrorists. They overpowered the pilots and took the plane toward Uganda. Interesting, they made a stop for refueling in Benghazi. In Uganda, the president, the dictator, Idi Amin, was waiting for them. There were other German terrorists waiting for them too. What they did immediately was to separate the people. Those that were Jewish were kept on one side. The rest who were not Jewish on another side. Those were going to be set free. But the Jews were going to be held as ransom for some Palestinians that were in jail in Israel. Tremendous thing. You know what Israel did? After negotiating with them, they sent 3 or 4 enormous planes to Uganda, flying on a very low altitude through Africa, something like 2,000 miles. It's a tremendous distance. They landed in Uganda, in Entebbe, shot their way through, and freed the prisoners, and brought them back to Israel. There was a very famous casualty on the Israeli side. His name was Yoni Netanyahu, Jonathan Netanyahu, the older brother of Bibi Netanyahu, who's the prime minister of Israel. You know, unlike other armed forces, where a colonel may be sitting in the back and ordering his troop to march forward, in Israel it isn't so. The commander is the first one. He doesn't say go, he says follow. He is the first one, follow me. That's what he said. And unfortunately, he fell victim. But in any event, the expedition was extremely successful. What was this expedition? It was a cry. It was an alert. It was a sound of alarm to the rest of the world. You know, there was a Holocaust where nobody responded. I want you to know there is a state of Israel. And if you are going to discriminate against Jews just because they're Jews, we are going to do something about it. And they sent planes. That was tremendous heroism. But I always thought, you know, it is strength, and at the same time, it is also weakness. What did everybody else do? Did anybody else say something when they separated Jews from non-Jews? Everybody else kept quiet. Just negotiate with the terrorists, and that's it. So in a sense, Israel felt at that time how isolated it really is from the world. But it also said, notwithstanding that we are isolated, we can also do something about it, and we're going to do about it. You know what Jewish tradition says? That the Messiah was born on Tisha B'Av. They couldn't pick on another date. Maybe what they wanted to teach us is that in the moment of greatest darkness, when you feel the greatest despair, when you feel abandoned, I want you to know God says, salvation is also being born at the same time. It depends upon you. It depends if you're going to create an atmosphere, an environment to get out of that. I'm going to help you, but you have to do something about it. This is what in Shir HaShirim we say, Moshcheni acharecha narutza. We need God to give us a push, but we have to follow. We have to run after it. So Tisha B'Av is a terrible date in Jewish tradition, as maybe other dates are, but we cannot live in the memory of tragedy. We have to know that tragedy has to be a springboard for hope, for progress, that even though there have been many destructions, a new Beit HaMikdash is going to be rebuilt eventually. God will intervene so that the glory of the Jewish people of many years ago, will once again be reestablished in our time as soon as possible.